Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Firewood at the Furnace. If it's your first time here, my name is Brad, and I hope you enjoy what you see here. If you do, please like and subscribe to the channel. We greatly appreciate it. If you see a little bit of an extra smile on my face today, it's because the sun is finally showing its face here in Maryland. The last several days have been cloudy, dreary, rainy, and just miserable. And it got me thinking, you know, when the sun comes out, how happy I feel. And you don't realize that when the weather's bad, how kind of in the dumps you feel. And I know people talk about having seasonal depression, and you know, whether you believe in that or not, I don't know, but I'm beginning to think it's probably a real thing. In the wintertime, when you don't see the sunshine, you're not getting that vitamin D. I think it definitely puts a damper on your mood. But anyway, the sun is shining here today, and I've got a lot to talk to you about because I'm thinking about making a major change to the operation here in this yard. And if you're on the live stream, I spoke a little bit about it, but I'm going to go into it a little more detail today. I'm going to show you what my ideas are, tell you what my plans are, and we've got to do a little bit of testing to see if the equipment that I have here in the yard is even going to handle what I want to do. So that's the plan. Stick around and hopefully we can learn together. All right, so let me know in the comments if you suffer from or if you believe in seasonal depression. I'm just curious because after I got done recording that opening, I was thinking even more about it, and I was like, I wonder how many people feel this way, or is it just me? So let me know down in the comments. Today, I'm going to talk to you about this right here. This is the centerpiece of the major change that I am thinking about doing here in the yard, and my idea is to move away from these pallets. I'm starting to have some problems with the pallets. I've had to replace a few. The dividers in between, the supports start to go bad. Things are falling down, and loading the firewood for the last several seasons now has been the bottleneck for this operation. That takes the most time. It's the most labor intensive now, and it's another touch that I have to handle the firewood, which you try to limit. Andrew Easton was talking on a video about a week or so ago about how if you're not constantly trying to move forward, make improvements, and try new things, you're kind of going to be stagnant. I think he mentioned getting caught flat-footed. So I'm trying to stay on my toes here, trying to improve things a little bit as we go, constantly making changes to the operation, and I think this idea will work. Now there's some logistical problems that we're going to have, and I need a whole bunch of these things. Some of you in the past have suggested that I do this, but I kind of put it to the back of my mind just because of the sheer number of Ibc totes that I'm going to need to do what I'm thinking about doing. But I have come up with a couple of contacts that are going to hook me up with some totes, and maybe I'll start gradually. Maybe instead of changing everything all at one time, I'll just do a little bit of it at a time to see how it works. That way, if it doesn't work, I can go back to the old way. But what I want to do is cut the front of this Ibc tote out. Now these Ibc totes are all over YouTube. There's lots of people who show this on their channels. It is no secret that they are a great option to store firewood in. But what I've done in the past is I've cut the front of the Ibc tote out and left the bottom section a little higher. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to leave the top rail and cut everything else out. The top rail being left in place will help give the Ibc tote some support and some integrity, while the bottom will be completely open. The reason I want to do that is because when I stack firewood in this tote, when I go to dump it, I want it all to come out very easily, which it will. Now, a couple tests we're going to have to do today is we're going to have to load this Ibc tote with a known third of a cord, which is already pre-measured on the pallets over here. So once we get it cut out, we'll move the tote over to the pallets and we will load a third of a cord in here and just see what it looks like, just for my own knowledge, my own reference, so I know exactly how high I need to go in this tote. Then the next test we have to do is to see if the skid loader, the Gale 4625, is even going to lift this tote up high enough to dump it into the side of the dump trailer. If it's not going to work, if the lift capacity is not going to handle it, then this is a non-issue because it's not going to work. Now the lift capacity of that machine is right around 1,500 pounds. That's at 50% tipping capacity, so I don't think it's going to tip at that point, but that's right at the edge of what it supposedly can do. And I think that's right about the number that this tote is going to weigh when there's a third of dry seasoned firewood loaded in it. But we're going to find all that out today. So let's get the front of this tote cut off the way I'm describing to you. I'll show you once it's done. Then we'll move it over and load it up. So there we go. The whole front is cut out except for the very top rail. That will keep it, you know, a little more integrity to the tote. And then when we go to dump, it'll all just slide out the front. Now, I know we're gonna have to go a little higher than the tote is to get the full third of a cord in, but that single rail there at the top is not gonna make a difference or hold the wood up from coming out. Now here's how I used to cut them. Over here where the bundle wood is. See, I cut the top rail out and then just cut down and left that bottom section. The problem with that is when you go to dump it, all the wood on the bottom is going to get locked in there and not want to slide out. So you end up having to shake the tote up and down really hard. It's I'm sure it shortens the life of the tote as you're beating it up and down, back and forth every time you go to dump it. So this is another option that I found, and I'm going to try it. So let's move it over. I'm going to put a third of a cord of cherry in it, see what it looks like when we're done. All right, here's our third of a cord of cherry. We know that this is definitely a third of a cord because it's all pre-measured. We got about 8 foot 2 inches that way, and we are about 3 foot 10 inches this way. So that goes to show you how much shrinkage you get as the wood dries. Now we're 4 foot over here, 4 foot 1 there, but on this side we are a little light, so we'll throw a couple extra pieces on there to make sure that it is definitely 1/3 of a cord. I've got the tote set up here that we're going to be tossing the wood into, so I'll put you on time lapse. We'll get this loaded up and see what it looks like. There it is, 1/3 of a cord of cherry. I am pleasantly surprised that I still get to keep my little bit of an air gap between the two rows there. It's about 36 to 37 inches inside width. So 16-inch pieces, you get a few inches to play with there. As far as the dimension this way, it's just shy of 4 feet. But 2 rows, you can see we got the full third of a cord in there. We are about 4.5 foot tall, and we're about 8 to 10 inches above the top rail of the tote. So that is where we need to be to fit a full third of a cord inside the tote. It worked out pretty well, other than the rail. When you're starting that first stack in the back, with that top rail being there, you kind of got to duck under that rail, which is a little bit of a pain, but once you get it built up a little bit, you can reach in over the top. So that's just something we'll have to take into consideration and deal with. But all in all, I think it works out good. It's not too high over the rail where I have to worry about stuff falling out while I'm moving it. The test now is to get the skid loader over here and see if we can raise it. Now, before you all say it, I know this is cherry. An oak or locust or hickory, other species of wood, are going to be much heavier than this. A little bit heavier than this. But I do have an order for cherry. That's why I loaded it in the basket, because that's what I need to get out of here. So let's try it with the skid loader If it struggles with the cherry, then we know it's going to be a problem with the oak. But we won't know until we try. Well, I'm happy with that. I left it tilted back a little bit too far, and you can see the back row kind of shifted a little bit, but the rails on the forks there kept the front from going anywhere. I purposely went all the way up, drove forward and backwards, and when I was bringing the basket down, I kind of was a little jerky with it just to see where the counterbalance was, and I could feel it got a little light in the rear end there when I was bringing it down. But I'm pretty confident that even with oak in there, I'm going to be able to lift it, you know, slowly moving up to the side of the trailer and dumping it in. So I don't think that's going to be a problem at all. We'll try that with oak here in the near future, but for that little test, I think I'm going to be okay. Now let me talk to you about the next phase of this switch, and you can all tell me what you think about that. All right, the next part of this change in operation is going to involve this spot right here. This is the location where the splitter stays permanently, the conveyor stays permanently, and I back the dump trailers underneath to load the green split wood and then move the trailer to the pallet area where it will be stacked. Now that I'm going to be able to move the stacked wood, I don't really need to be moving the dump trailer back and forth in the yard. So now the plan is, whether or not I leave the conveyor here in this location or move it to a different spot in the yard is still up for debate, and I haven't decided yet. But I think what I will do at this point is run the green wood off the conveyor right onto the ground, cone it up, and then I can bring the totes to the pile. Taylor, Brady, Valerie, myself, whoever can stack the totes right at the pile coming off the conveyor. Then they can be moved down into the yard wherever they're going to be staged for drying. Now, some of you had mentioned on the live stream that if I do this thing with the totes where I'm moving the totes in and out of the yard, I'm really going to tear up the yard and the grass and make what I try to keep a nice wood yard a mess again. Well, that's something I'm going to take into consideration too. I'm not just going to be turning 90 degrees with the skid loader all over the yard. We will still have rows of totes, and I will come straight down the yard, pick up the next tote in line, back straight out to the front of the yard where the grass no longer is anyway, and that's where I'll turn to load the trailer. So I'll do my best to keep the yard in as nice of a shape as possible, but this is going to be a gradual changeover, I think. It's not going to even start until after the fellowship, which is at the end of January. If you haven't registered for the fellowship yet and you feel like you might be making the trip or want to come, click on the QR or take a picture of the QR code here at the top of the screen, or click on the link in the description to the website where you can register to come to the fellowship. Having a rough number of the amount of people that are going to show up that day is kind of a big deal for us this year as far as food goes and just planning for the event. So if you haven't done that, please do so. But anyway, I'm not even going to start this process until after the fellowship is over, because there's going to be a lot of things that need to be moved around, trials and tests, and see what works and what doesn't. So I don't want to shuffle things around too much until after that event. So that's the plan. Let me know in the comments what you think. If it's a dumb idea, if you think it's a good idea, or if you think it's at least worth a shot. All right, that's going to be it for today. I appreciate everyone hanging out with me here for a few minutes today. It's a pretty bold move here that I'm thinking about doing. This is what I've done since the very beginning with these rows of pallets. And I don't know if it's going to work the way I have it in my mind or not, but it's worth a shot and I think if we just start with, you know, if I get 30 or 40 totes and just start with those, if I have 30 totes, I can get 10 cord? 10 cord and 30 totes, and if I continue to have a resource to obtain more and more totes and it's working out well, then I'll continue to make the transition. So over the next several months, you're going to see that transition taking place, and we'll learn along the way. So I hope you all have a great week. Make sure you tune in next Wednesday. We're going to have the footage from the Hope event up in Stewartstown, Pennsylvania, with Ken and Danny from York Firewood, along with a couple other woodhounds that are coming along to help this worthwhile cause. If you haven't heard any information about that, you can check out York Firewood's channel. You can also check out the end of this video up here at the top of your screen, and we'll bring that to you next Wednesday. So until then, have a great week, everybody, and take care.